Ever scroll through pages of online reviews and just feel, like, overwhelmed? Some are obviously fake, some are just unhelpful, and honestly, who has time to read them all?
Ugh, tell me about it. It's like, where's the filter for reviews that actually matter?
Right, so imagine this.
Yeah.
You can just ask, like your smart speaker, hey, is this thing any good? And boom, instant personalized review, maybe even tailored to what you care about most.
Like having a personal AI shopper on call 24/7, that'd be pretty slick.
Well, that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've got this paper,
Yeah.
right? And it's all about how machines are learning to get sentiment.
Sentiments.
Yeah, like the whole positive, negative, or just like meh feeling you get from someone's words. And the kicker, this thing can even write its own emotionally charged stuff.
It can write, hold on, I gotta hear this. What is this? Like a superpowered chatbot or something?
Kinda, but way more advanced. This one starts by breaking language down to its bare bones, like literally the byte level.
Byte-level. Okay, you're losing me a little.
Think of it like the computer speak in ones and zeros. Yeah, bytes. So this model, it's like they fed it raw bits of data and said, go figure out what humans are feeling.
Whoa, starting from scratch. That's ambitious.
No kidding. And the crazy thing is, it works. It starts picking up on sentiment, like just from those digital crumbs.
So what kind of data did they use to, I guess you could say, train this thing?
Get ready for this, millions, and I mean millions, of Amazon product reviews.
Oh, wow. The ultimate proving ground for sentiment analysis. Makes sense, I guess. You got everything in there from glowing praise to utter disappointment.
Right. Talk about a goldmine of opinions. But using that specific data actually highlights this thing called domain specificity.
Domain specificity. Catchy. What's that then?
It basically means that if you train an AI on, say, Amazon reviews, it becomes like a pro at understanding sentiment in that world.
Yeah.
But ask it to analyze, I don't know, like a Shakespearean sonnet.
Right. Total meltdown.
Exactly. Its expertise is like tied to the specific data it's been trained on.
So we've got this AI. It's drowning in Amazon reviews, figuring out the good, the bad, and the ugly. What's next?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Deep inside this model, the researchers found something kind of mind-blowing, almost like a sentiment sensor.
A sentiment sensor. Now that sounds intriguing.
Yeah, so picture this. One tiny part of this whole system was almost as good at predicting the overall sentiment of a review as the entire model itself.
Hold on, one tiny part. Like finding a needle in a haystack, but the needle's the one doing the searching? How's that even possible?
That's the question, isn't it? And it opens up a whole can of worms about how AI processes, well, us. Like, are they starting to get human emotion, or is it something totally different?
It's like getting a glimpse inside the AI's brain and seeing, like, wait a minute, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
It really does make you wonder, like, are they cracking the code of human emotion, or is this something else entirely?
Right. Like, are we seeing the birth of AI empathy, or is it just a really good imitation? But hold on, there's more. This model, it doesn't just read sentiment, it can actually write with it too.
Wait, seriously? So it's like taking those Amazon reviews and then spinning its own yarns?
Yeah, basically. And here's the kicker. The researchers could actually control the sentiment of the text the AI was generating.
Okay, now that's just cool. How'd they do that? Like, was there a dial they were turning to crank up the positivity?
It all comes back to that little sentiment sensor we were talking about. They could, like, nudge it in a certain direction, make it more positive or negative, and then when they had the AI write something, boom, instant mood swing.
So they could make the AI write a glowing 5-star review about, I don't know, a paperclip.
You got it. I mean, imagine reading a review that's like, this paperclip changed my life, 5 stars. You can practically feel the AI's forced enthusiasm.
Or the opposite, like a scathing 1-star review for like a perfectly good stapler. This stapler is an insult to staplers everywhere. Avoid at all costs.
Exactly. It's kind of hilarious, but also a little creepy, right? Like, if we can control the sentiment of AI-generated text, what does that mean for us?
Yeah, it's getting into some ethically ambiguous territory there. Think about it. Like, imagine ads written by AIs that are specifically designed to push our emotional buttons.
Targeted advertising on steroids.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Or what about, like, political campaigns? Fake news articles that sound totally legit but are actually just AI-generated propaganda. It's a slippery slope.
Okay, that's getting a little too Black Mirror for me. Let's bring it back down to earth for a minute. As fascinating as all this is, this AI isn't about to be writing all our reviews for us, right?
Not yet, anyway. The researchers did hit a bit of a wall with the model. They called it a capacity ceiling. Basically, even with all that data, there was a limit to how much the AI could learn.
Really? So even with the entire Amazon database at its disposal, it's still tapped out.
Seems like it. And there are a few theories as to why. Remember, domain specificity. Well, that might be part of the problem. The AI is so focused on Amazon reviews that it might have trouble understanding sentiment in other contexts.
So it's like an Amazon review savant, but ask it to analyze a poem, and it's completely lost.
Exactly. It's like trying to teach a fish to climb a tree, and then there's the whole byte-level approach. As cool as it is, it might not be the most efficient way to analyze really long, complex texts.
So like trying to understand a movie by analyzing every single frame individually.
Yeah.
You might eventually get the picture, but it's going to take a while. It's like trying to run a marathon but hitting a wall halfway through. You can train all you want, but eventually you hit your limit.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that AI, as advanced as it is, still has its limits. It's not some magical solution to everything.
Right, right. So, okay, we've covered a lot of ground here. If we had to, like, sum up the main takeaways from this whole deep dive, what would they be? What have we learned?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just how sophisticated AI is becoming at understanding something as fundamentally human as sentiment. Who would have thought you could train a machine to read emotions from, like ones and zeros?
It's mind-blowing when you really think about it. We've basically created a system that can decipher feelings from raw data.
And not just decipher, but like in a way that seems to mirror how our brains process language and emotion. It's like, is AI starting to think like us? That's a pretty profound question.
It really is. But like we were saying, it's not all sunshine and roses. This whole capacity ceiling thing, that's a reality check.
Yeah, definitely. It's a good reminder that we're still in the early stages of AI. We've come a long way, sure, but there's still a lot we don't know, a lot of unknowns to explore.
And that's what makes it so exciting, right? It's like we're on the verge of something huge, but we don't know exactly what it's going to look like yet.
Exactly. It's like we've opened this door to a whole new world of possibilities, but we're still just scratching the surface. Who knows what AI will be capable of in the future? Will we get to a point where it can truly understand the full range of human emotion, not just in, product reviews, but in everything, in art, in music, in our everyday conversations? It's a pretty mind-blowing thought.
It really is. And on that note, another deep dive comes to an end. We've gone from the nitty-gritty of byte-level learning to AI's surprising ability to not only understand sentiment, but to generate it. It's been a wild ride, and it definitely leaves us with more questions than answers, but hey, that's what keeps things interesting, right? Until next time, keep those minds curious, and we'll see you in the next deep dive. All right, so get this. We're going to dive into some AI research that's seriously cool, maybe even a little spooky. You sent over some articles about AI, like actually writing reviews. But the crazy part is they never even learned what a good or bad review was.
Yeah, it's wild, and that's exactly what makes this research so interesting. We're talking about AI that's not just copying, but it's actually understanding something as complex as how someone feels, their sentiment.
Okay, so for people who aren't like total AI nerds, can we back up for a sec? We're talking about language models here, right? Like the things that predict the next word in a sentence.
Yeah.
Kind of like your phone's autocorrect, but way more advanced.
Exactly, but with a really cool twist. So these researchers, they trained their language model on like a massive data set of Amazon reviews. But get this, they did it at the byte level.
Byte level. You mean instead of feeding the AI words like great or terrible, they broke it down even further to like the digital ones and zeros that make up the language.
Precisely.
Huh. Wouldn't that make things harder? I mean, it's like trying to get the meaning of a sentence by looking at each individual brushstroke in a painting, right? Instead of the whole picture.
Right. You would think so. But the researchers had this hunch, this hypothesis, that even with these really limited inputs, the AI could still figure out if a review was positive or negative just based on the patterns in the bytes.
No way. Really? So even without knowing the words, it could tell if a review was good or bad. How is that even possible?
That is the million-dollar question. And this is where the research gets seriously interesting. So we're talking about sentiment, right? Well, as I looked into it, the researchers discovered something really unusual in how the AI was processing everything.
Okay, this is where I'm picturing like these complex diagrams with flashing lights and...
And not quite. Actually, it's more about what they didn't see. It wasn't this crazy mess of connections. They found one single unit within the model. Think of it like one neuron in a giant brain, and this one unit, it was basically working as a sentiment detector.
Wait, so you're saying the AI like developed its own specialized part just for understanding feelings, just from reading a bunch of reviews?
It seems that way. And get this, They found that when they messed with this one sentiment unit, it actually changed how positive or negative the AI's writing was. It was like a dial for good and bad.
Are you serious? They could, what, just flip a switch and make the AI write a glowing review for, like, I don't know, a rusty old can opener?
Well, maybe not a can opener, but yeah. It's incredible, right? This just goes to show how powerful that single sentiment unit was just from learning from human language.
Wow, that's pretty wild. It makes you wonder what people could use this for. But before we go there, can we go back to something you mentioned before about the AI learning from individual bytes of data, not even full words? Didn't the researcher say that changed how much info it needed to learn?
Oh, absolutely. That's another really cool thing about this research. They discovered this model was crazy good at learning from just a little bit of data, especially when it came to, understanding sentiment. It's not like some AI that has to be spoon-fed tons and tons of examples.
So it's like it had a knack for languages or something. Like it could pick up on the good vibes or the bad vibes way faster than you'd think.
Exactly. And that little detail about how much data it needed has some big implications. It means we might be able to train AI to understand like really specific stuff much faster, Imagine analyzing financial reports or even medical stuff for like emotional cues and doing it super fast.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But I think I also read something about it like hitting a wall. Like it can only learn so much even with more data. What was that about?
You're right. There was a limit. It's like the model was a rock star when it came to figuring out sentiment and stuff similar to what it learned on, like, remember all those Amazon reviews. But when they threw like way bigger, more random data sets at it, its performance kind of plateaued.
So our AI aced the Amazon reviews, but bombed the Shakespeare tests.
Exactly. There are probably some built-in things, limitations in how the model is set up that make it tough to jump between like super different types of text. I mean, think about it. The way people write reviews is totally different from like poetry or, technical manuals.
Totally. So even though it can tell if you love or hate your new blender, it's not going to be writing any award-winning movie reviews anytime soon.
Probably not yet, at least. But even with those limitations, this research, it really makes you rethink some of the, assumptions we have about artificial intelligence in general.
And how so?
Well, usually we think of AI learning as very structured, right? We feed it all this data, we tell it exactly what to do, and it learns to make predictions. But what's cool here is this whole idea of unsupervised learning.
Unsupervised learning? You mean like just setting the AI loose on a mountain of data and seeing what it does?
Pretty much. This research makes you think, even without specific directions, AI can still find really cool stuff in the data. It's like giving someone a stack of books and letting them discover things on their own.
Wow, that's a pretty wild idea. But let's talk about what this all means for, AI actually understanding human emotion.
The possibilities are kind of endless. For example, imagine what this could do for marketing. Like AI that can figure out what customers are feeling from their reviews, social media and all that, and then actually use that to create super targeted ads.
Okay, now that's both amazing and a little creepy. Like, how much is this AI really going to know about us?
That's the question, isn't it? And it's not just marketing either. Think about mental health. An AI that can spot those subtle emotional cues in, like your texts or posts, could be really useful for figuring out who's struggling.
So it could be like a therapist in your pocket listening to everything you say, looking for warning signs.
In a way, yeah. But like any new technology, we got to be careful. We have to make sure this stuff is used responsibly, with the right guardrails in place.
For sure. We don't want to live in a world where AI is reading our minds, but making sure that doesn't happen is a topic for another time. This has been super interesting, though. Anything else we haven't covered about this research? This whole AI learning how we feel just from reading our words, it really makes you think, What else could it be picking up on that we're totally oblivious to?
It's a really interesting question. Like, if AI can already get sentiment from how we write, what other stuff is it seeing that we're missing? Could it be like noticing biases in our language we don't even realize are there? Or maybe even figuring out personality stuff just from how we're coming across?
It's like AI is becoming this, I don't know, super observer of humans, picking up on things even we miss. Kind of cool, kind of creepy. But before we go full sci-fi, did the researchers talk about any drawbacks or challenges with all this?
Yeah, for sure. One of the big things they stressed was how important transparency is. Like, as these AI models get more complex, we really need to understand how they're making decisions.
So it's like, even if we're not mechanics, we still need to pop the hood and make sure we kind of get what the engine's doing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's even more important when you think about AI being used in things like healthcare or marketing stuff that affects people's lives. We got to make sure it's being used ethically, you know?
Makes sense. So if our listeners only take away one thing from this whole sentiment analysis deep dive, what should it be?
I think the big takeaway here is that AI isn't just about following orders anymore. It's becoming capable of learning and adapting in ways we're just starting to grasp. This research is just a peek into what unsupervised learning could become, and honestly, it's going to change how we interact with tech and even with each other.
Definitely a lot to think about.
Uh,
Who knows, maybe someday we'll be having the same conversation with an AI that's analyzing our every word in real time. But until then, thanks for, breaking down this complex topic so clearly. I always appreciate your insights.
Happy to be here. Always fun to explore these cutting-edge topics and see where things are headed.
Couldn't agree more. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI sentiment analysis. Until next time, keep those questions coming, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next episode. Some of the research you send over for these deep dives is, it's pretty out there. And this one, AI sentiment analysis, sounds almost deceptively simple at first, right?
Yeah.
But then you get into these recurrent language models, and wow, my mind was blown.
Yeah, it really gets to the core of how we even understand language as humans in the first place, I mean, most of us, we just see words as words, but these models, they break everything down, like way down to the character level, almost to the point of like individual bytes.
So it's almost like, I don't know, teaching a computer to speak a new language, but instead of using actual words, you're just showing it pixels on a screen. Like somehow it's supposed to make sense of all that. But, I mean, it works. The researchers trained this model on, what was it, like 82 million Amazon product reviews, a massive data set. And somehow it was able to, read the emotional tone of a review.
And that's exactly what's so fascinating about this research, right? It's that by training the model on this massive, huge amount of text and from one specific domain, it basically became like a connoisseur of product reviews, Like it could pick up on those really subtle cues, almost like, I don't know, linguistic fingerprints. And those fingerprints are what tell you if someone loved or absolutely hated that new coffee grinder or whatever it was they were reviewing.
Okay, but let's unpack this a bit. We're talking about an AI that can figure out if a review is positive or negative just by looking at the individual characters that make up the words. Not even looking at whole words or sentences. That's some next level stuff.
It really is. And what's even more mind-blowing is just how accurate this model was. Like, it was performing at near state-of-the-art levels on these sentiment analysis tasks, even compared to other models that had all this, carefully labeled data.
Wow. So it's not just understanding sentiment, it's understanding it incredibly well, even compared to models with, let's say, a more traditional kind of training. What's the key here? Is it just the sheer volume of data? Like, is that the secret weapon?
Well, it's definitely part of it, but it's, it's more nuanced than just that. Remember we were talking about those linguistic fingerprints earlier? It's almost as if within this entire huge neural network, one single unit within that network, it became really, really sensitive to those fingerprints. The researchers even called it the sentiment unit.
Wait, a sentiment unit. So there's actually like a specific part of this model that's dedicated to recognizing emotion. That's both amazing and a little creepy if you think about it too much. But it gets even wilder, right? They were actually able to visualize this sentiment unit in action.
They were. There's an image, I think it's figure 4 in the paper you sent, and it shows the sentiment unit lighting up as it's processing positive and negative movie reviews. It's like, I don't know, watching the AI react emotionally, but in real time.
So what? They basically hooked this AI up to like an emotional EKG and just started feeding it movie reviews.
Yeah.
I bet that got interesting, especially with some of the, more passionate movie fans out there.
Oh, absolutely. And they didn't hold back. Glowing praise, scathing critiques, you name it, they threw it at this AI. And what they found was this sentiment unit, it would fluctuate sometimes pretty dramatically too, depending on, how positive or negative the review was. Positive words, positive spike, negative words, you get the idea.
So we had this sentiment unit, this single unit, acting like a tiny emotional barometer inside this system that's processing information in ways we can barely even understand. Kind of makes you wonder, could we find similar units for other things, other complex concepts, or does every AI develop its own sort of unique emotional fingerprint based on whatever it is it's learned?
That's a really great question. And to be honest, it's one that researchers are trying to figure out right now. But this research, I mean, it opens up all these new possibilities for how we understand AI, especially when it comes to how it processes and interprets language and how it reacts to things like emotion. And the thing is, the sentiment unit, it's not just, a passive observer, like just taking it all in.
Wait, there's more.
Right.
Seriously, this AI is already blowing my mind, and now you're telling me it has even more tricks up its sleeve. I'm half expecting you to tell me it writes poetry in binary code when no one's looking.
Well, maybe not poetry, but get this, they could actually manipulate the sentiment unit.
Hold on, manipulate, like directly control it.
Yeah.
You're saying they could make the AI write a positive or negative review, whatever they wanted, just by like tweaking this one unit. Okay, that's both amazing and kind of scary. It's like, I don't know, training a parrot to write Yelp reviews on command.
It really shows you just how powerful this technology is, but also, like you said, maybe a little concerning too. But to answer your question, yeah, they could do that. In fact, they actually included some of these AI written reviews in the research. I think it's table 5 if you want to take a look.
Oh, I am definitely looking at table 5. Give me a second. Okay. This one's pretty good. Best hammock ever. Stays in place, holds its shape, comfy. I love the deep neon pictures on it. It's so cute. Who writes this stuff?
Pretty impressive for something written by an algorithm analyzing bytes, right?
Impressive, hilarious, and I have to admit, a little creepy. I mean, it really makes you wonder about all those glowing 5-star reviews you see online, But all jokes aside, this does raise some pretty big questions. Like, if they can manipulate the AI sentiment, what else could they potentially influence just by, I don't know, messing with these internal units?
That's a huge question right now in AI research, and this study definitely adds fuel to that fire, so to speak. I mean, it highlights just how powerful these models can be and how much potential they have, but also, the potential risks that come with that. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's go back to something we talked about earlier, the data the model was trained on, those 82 million Amazon reviews.
Right. It's like the AI equivalent of binge watching every single episode of a shopping channel.
All right.
Except instead of just watching, it's actually analyzing every single product review it encounters.
Exactly. And while that training, it was obviously really effective when it came to understanding product reviews, there was a bit of a catch. When they tested it on a different data set, Yelp reviews this time, it didn't do so well.
So you're saying all that knowledge, like knowing the difference between, say, a 5-star waffle iron and a 1-star toaster, it doesn't automatically make you a master food critic. You need a different kind of training to navigate the world of, fancy restaurant reviews and whatnot.
Apparently so. The model, it basically hit a wall, a capacity ceiling is what they called it, when they fed it those Yelp reviews. The way people talk about food, the ambiance of a restaurant, the service, it's just different from how people write about products. It's like expecting someone who's fluent in Spanish to suddenly understand Mandarin just like that.
So what you're saying is, even with all its processing power and, byte-level analysis, this AI, it's still limited by what it knows, what it's been trained on. Just like us, really, context is everything.
Absolutely. And when it comes to AI, understanding those limitations, knowing what it's an expert in and what it's not, based on the data it's been fed, well, that's crucial.
So our AI foodie still needs some work before it can tell the difference between, an actually good 5-star meal and just someone who really loves their microwave dinners.
Right, exactly. But even with that limitation, this whole idea of, unsupervised learning, it's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
It really is. I mean, this model got such incredible results, and it never even had a crash course in what makes something positive or negative. It was just pure pattern recognition, but on this massive scale.
Exactly. It's like, imagine if you could learn to understand people's emotions just by, looking at their faces or their body language. You might not know the exact words someone is saying, but you can get a feel for how they're feeling, right? That's basically what this AI is doing. But instead of faces and body language, it's using bytes.
Okay, that's a really good analogy. And it makes you think, if AI can do all that, if it can pull out something as complex as, human emotions just from raw data, what else could it potentially learn? Are there any limits here?
Now you're getting it. We could train these things on, practically anything you can think of. News articles, social media posts, even those, 10-page restaurant reviews we were talking about earlier. Who knows? Maybe we're talking about some kind of universal sentiment detector someday, one that can look at anything and tell us exactly what the emotional tone is.
Yeah, we're really going down the rabbit hole. But that's an incredible thought, right? It'd be like holding up a mirror to the entire digital world, but instead of just seeing the words, we're seeing the emotions behind them too.
Yeah.
But that also kind of makes you wonder, I mean, can we even quantify human emotions like that? Can we really teach an algorithm how to truly understand everything we feel, all those subtle nuances, the contradictions? I mean, isn't that part of what makes us human?
Now, those are the questions, aren't they? And while this research, it gives us a glimpse of what might be possible with AI, it also reminds us that there are still some mysteries that, well, maybe are better left unsolved. Or at the very least, explored really, really carefully.
Caution and awareness. Two things we could always use a little more of these days, especially when it comes to something as powerful as AI. Well, this has been quite the deep dive. We started with simple sentiment analysis, and now we're talking about the future of AI and what it even means to be human. Definitely a lot to think about.
Ever get that, eerie feeling like the internet can read your mind?
Yeah.
Maybe it's just me. But today we're diving into a world where computers are learning to understand emotions, in text, sentiment analysis. It's getting really wild.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible stuff.
We're really taking a deep dive into this research paper, learning to generate reviews and discovering sentiment. And basically, these researchers, they use, get this, over 82 million Amazon product reviews.
Wow.
To teach a computer basically how to, feel the sentiment, the actual feeling behind the words.
Yeah.
So think about it. You're scrolling through Amazon. You want to find the best reviews, right? The ones that actually tell you something.
Right.
Ever wonder how those get chosen? Like, how do they end up at the top?
Yeah, for sure.
That's sentiment analysis doing its thing.
It's really cool. What's so interesting about it is that it's not just like picking out positive or negative words.
Right.
It's about understanding, like the actual feeling behind them.
Oh, wow.
Like teaching computers to, kind of read between the lines like we do. And honestly, that's surprisingly complex. It's not easy to teach a computer that.
So how do they even start? Like, how do you even begin to teach a computer about feelings?
Right.
They started with a massive amount of data. Like I said, 82 million Amazon reviews. Just a mountain of opinions.
Yeah, crazy amount of data.
So imagine trying to understand all of that at once. It's overwhelming, right?
Absolutely.
So instead of doing that, they designed a system to read these reviews, like piece by piece, letter by letter, almost like how we learn to read. And as it went, the computer started to pick up on patterns, like how certain words and phrases connect to different emotions.
It's true. And the model they chose, a multiplicative LSTM, is really good at that kind of learning, that step-by-step stuff, especially with language, all the nuances.
And here's where it gets really interesting. So they've fed all these reviews in, right?
Yeah.
And they discovered something kind of amazing. They found a single unit within this whole AI model that seemed to be directly, encoding sentiment.
Yeah.
Like, imagine a tiny part of this computer program just lighting up in response to the emotions it's reading.
It's really something. It's like a mood ring almost inside the AI, like changing color based on the emotions in the text. And this sentiment unit, as it's called, it's like a single neuron in the AI's brain that fires more strongly for, positive sentiment and then less for negative.
That's wild. So, we've created computers that actually understand human emotions now.
Well, not quite. It's an amazing discovery, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't think therapists need to be worried just yet.
Right.
Remember, this AI was trained on Amazon reviews. That's all it knows. So it understands, this product was a great value, the battery life was disappointing, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But the nuances of human relationships or the emotional depth of, a great novel, that's a whole other ballgame.
So context is really important here.
Absolutely. Context is key. In fact, the researchers, they actually found what they called a capacity ceiling.
Basically, even with all those millions of reviews, the AI's accuracy, it kind of plateaued.
Yeah.
There's a limit to what you can learn from one type of text, even if it's a ton of data.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
You wouldn't expect someone who only reads cookbooks to, understand Shakespeare.
Exactly. It highlights how important it is to have diverse data sets.
Right.
To really get human emotion. AI needs to be exposed to all types of human expression.
Yeah. Okay. So this AI might not be writing poetry anytime soon, but it sounds like it could do some pretty impressive things, even with those limitations.
Oh, for sure. And what's really cool? They didn't just analyze sentiment.
Yeah.
They could actually manipulate it, too.
What?
So by tweaking that sentiment unit, that one we talked about, they could basically control the AI's emotional response.
No way. Yeah. So they could give it a sentence about a product, right?
Yeah.
Totally neutral. But depending on how they adjusted the sentiment unit, the AI would finish the sentence with, like, glowing praise or a really harsh critique.
Wow. So they basically taught this AI to be like a spin doctor.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
And Table 5 in the paper, it shows this really well. They took a product review, right?
Yeah.
Kept all the details the same, just changed the sentiment unit. And the results are crazy. 2 versions of the same review, one super positive, one super negative.
That's kind of creepy, honestly.
Yeah, it does raise some ethical questions, right? Like, imagine this technology in the wrong hands.
Yeah.
It could be used to, create fake reviews or manipulate public opinion, even propaganda.
Wow.
It's a powerful reminder that any new technology, comes with the responsibility to use it for good.
Definitely. But on a more positive note, it could also be used for a lot of good too, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, imagine being able to analyze like customer feedback with this kind of accuracy, or personalize marketing messages, even help writers, make their writing more emotionally powerful.
Yeah, definitely. It could be huge. And it all goes back to that, that big question. Can we really teach a computer to understand like actual human emotions? And this research is saying, yeah, maybe we can.
It's like we're opening up this whole new world, but we don't know what's inside yet.
Right.
It could be amazing or it could be, kind of scary. And it's up to us to make sure we use it for the right reasons.
Exactly. We have to be responsible. And that goes beyond just sentiment analysis, too. Like, what about all the other stuff language can do? Sarcasm, humor, even persuasion.
Man, imagine if AI could do that.
That's what's so exciting about this field. I mean,
Yeah.
we're always pushing the limits. We're figuring out how complex language really is and how complex AI can be.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive into sentiment analysis for today.
It's been fun.
We've talked about how researchers figured out how to teach computers to understand emotion in text.
Right.
We talked about how it could be good, how it could be bad.
Yeah.
And we even got to imagine a future where AI is writing jokes and books and, like, arguing with us about stuff.
That's right.
And it all started with one simple idea: teaching a computer what a single word, how a single word can make you feel. So I guess the question I want to leave you with is this. If you could have an AI analyze any text, like really figure out the emotions behind it, what would you choose? What would you want it to read?
That's a good one.
It's something to think about. And until next time, keep exploring. All right, ready to dive into the world of AI. Today, we're going to unpack how computers learn to understand our emotions, just from how we write.
Yeah, like we're handing AI the keys to decode our feelings, all through the words we use.
Exactly. And get this, the research we're diving into today, it's called Learning to Generate Reviews and Discovering Sentiment. It's got some wild findings. Imagine researchers built an AI that can read your review, say, for the latest tech gadget, and tell you if you loved it or hated it super accurately.
Like they figured out the secret code of digital emotions, right?
Yeah.
And what's really mind-blowing is the amount of data they use to train this AI.
Okay, picture this. 82 million Amazon reviews. 82 million? That's like what? 38 billion words? All fed into this AI model. It's like an AI reading marathon,
And you'd think you'd get lost in all that info, right? But no, it used it to get crazy good at sentiment analysis.
So instead of information overload, this AI was like, bring it on. Like some kind of super-powered speed reader just absorbing everything.
Exactly. And it wasn't just for show either. On that Stanford Sentiment Tree Bank, the big test for this stuff, this model scored almost 92% accuracy. Even beat out those crazy systems that use, like, multiple models at once.
Wait, so this one AI is outperforming, like the AI all-star team? That's incredible.
Total game changer.
Okay.
But get this, while they were figuring out how it worked, they found something totally unexpected. Imagine like a giant web of interconnected nodes, right? That's basically the AI's brain.
Okay, so like a high-tech spider web of information. What'd they find in there?
So they discovered that one single unit in this whole web, it's like responsible for the AI's ability to analyze sentiment. It's wild.
Hold on, one unit. Out of all those connections, just one is figuring out human emotion. Like this AI has a heart, but it's the size of like a pinhead.
It's kind of like that. They call it the sentiment unit. And it's like it reacts to the emotional tone of the text. Positive text, it lights up. Negative. goes dark.
Wow, so this AI, it's like it developed its own intuition about human feelings, and it all comes down to this one tiny unit. Makes you wonder, like, are our emotions that simple too?
It's a fascinating thought, right? This discovery really makes us rethink AI. You'd think, analyzing sentiment would be this complex thing.
Yeah.
But maybe it's more straightforward than we thought.
So we've got the sentiment superstar, right? But you said it gets even better. What else makes this AI so special?
Well, it's not just smart, it's efficient, too. Imagine those other AI models,
Right.
Like they're hungry for data. You got to feed them tons of labeled stuff, reviews tagged positive or negative just for them to get it. This new model needs way less.
So it's like learning at warp speed. This efficiency thing, that's got to be huge for the real world.
Oh, absolutely. Imagine any business, big or small, being able to analyze what their customers are feeling. Startups could use it to see how people react to a new product. Big companies could use it on millions of reviews to make their services better. It'd be huge.
It's like giving businesses a direct line to their customers' hearts and minds, basically. But let's be real, no AI is perfect. What about this one? What can it do?
Yeah, there are always limitations. It's great with Amazon reviews, but then you give it something from Yelp and it stumbles a bit.
Interesting. Why would it struggle with restaurant reviews after doing so well with products? It's all opinions.
Context. That's the key. Yelp reviews, they're all about the experience, the atmosphere, the service, how the food looks, all that. Amazon reviews, they're about how well something works, if it'll last, is it worth the money. Totally different things for an AI.
So it's like you can't teach someone classical music and then expect them to just jam out to jazz, right? They might get the music part, but the style's totally different.
Exactly. And that's important to remember even with the most advanced AI. They're amazing at finding patterns in the data they know, but throw them something new, something unexpected, and they might not get it.
Context is king for AI, just like for us. Okay, but back to this whole generating reviews thing. It's not like writing fake reviews, is it?
Not really. Think of it more like it's showing us how it understands sentiment. Researchers figured out they could kind of control the tone of the reviews it made by messing with that sentiment unit.
Wait, so they could make it write a bad review for like a boring movie or a good one for an amazing meal? Just by changing one thing. That's wild. What did these AI reviews even look like? Any examples?
Oh, yeah. And some of them are very human sounding. Check this out. This is a negative one. Like the cover. Fits good. However, an annoying rear piece like garbage should be out of this one.
Oh, harsh. It even went all caps, like it's yelling. You can practically hear the frustration.
Right, like some angry comment you'd see online. All right, now get ready for a positive one. Best hammock ever. Stays in place and holds its shape. Comfy. I love the deep neon pictures on it. And looks so cute.
Wow, it even threw in a little side comment in parentheses. This is next level stuff. It's like, it's trying to convince us it's human. This whole thing is amazing, but also kind of creepy, you know?
For sure. Opens up a lot of questions about where AI is going and what it means for us.
Exactly. Like, what else could be hiding inside these models?
We're scratching the surface, really.
This deep dive has been incredible. Cutting-edge research, the inside scoop on AI emotions, even a peek into the future of AI writing all in one go.
And the best part, we're just getting started.
So true. What other mysteries are waiting for us in the world of AI? Who knows? And here's the thing, right? This whole sentiment unit discovery, it's got researchers thinking, what if there are other specialized units in these AI models?
Yeah, like a whole periodic table, but for AI skills.
Exactly. Instead of elements, we've got units for humor, logic, maybe even creativity. It's kind of mind-blowing and a little bit, I don't know, unnerving.
Absolutely. It's like we found this brand new map of AI, and we're just starting to figure out where everything is.
And this deep dive, it's given us an amazing look at one of those places, right? Sentiment analysis. I mean, who knew that one tiny piece of an AI could be the key to understanding something as complex as human emotion?
It really makes you wonder what else these AI models are capable of.
It's like AI is trying to tell us its secrets, and we're finally starting to get it.
And the more we listen, the more we realize how much we still don't know.
Exactly. More questions than answers. That's what makes this so interesting.
Keeps us curious, right? Makes us want to dig deeper.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we're left with this thought, right? If one little unit in AI can figure out sentiment, what other amazing things are hidden in these models?
What other parts of, human intelligence could we find reflected in how they work?
It's a question that'll keep researchers busy for a long time, and we can't wait to see what they find. Thanks for joining us for this incredible deep dive into the world of AI and sentiment analysis. It's a field that's constantly evolving, and we're excited to see what the future holds. Until next time, Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the fascinating world of technology.